I really like talking to people who work in the creative fields.
Yeah.
Because I have found that there are two types of people. There's the types who have done, like, they've gone to school for this.
Yeah.
Right. And I think earlier you mentioned that you didn't. I didn't either. Like, I went to school for economics and psychology.
Okay.
You know, so I had to kind of learn all this shit myself. But I have noticed there's a distinct difference between people who go to like Tisch or, you know, who go to like film school.
Yeah.
And how they approach work outside of it versus people, I guess, probably like you who kind of have to learn it firsthand and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Right? Like, when did you want to pursue this? I mean, what do you do, first of all? Let's start there. You're a videographer, director?
Videographer. But I think, like many young sort of people that have just gone to filmmaking or cinematography, like a one-man show, right? Now, like, it's part of my career that I'm trying to move away from that, trying to specialize a little bit more. But even right now, I think that's one of the biggest values is being able to, at least at a consistent quality, be able to go through the entire process of creating content or films or commercials, and being able to, you know, be hands-on with that, almost that entire process.
And how long have you been doing this for?
I think as a business, right, in China, starting a business, you know, like, I always got to do it.
Right.
I already do all of that stuff. I need a visa as well, being from Canada. About 2 years.
Okay.
Right.
Dude, that's pretty impressive. Like, I've seen your reels and stuff, and not just the work, but also the clients. Like, 2 years into this, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah. But I think the 3 years beforehand, I think really helped build that up.
Yeah.
Right? Because being a one-man show, I think for me, the most important thing is the role of the producer.
Okay.
Right? Because you have to find clients, first of all, right?
Right.
You know, and then you have to make sure whatever it is you're doing kind of matches what they're looking for.
Right.
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 You never want to sort of, you know, have this sort of high expectation that you're not able to achieve.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that's one of the biggest things that I've come to learn even beforehand. Right. So coming to China, it wasn't part of the plan, right? I think like
it
a
never
lot of people,
is.
it never is part of the plan.
Yeah, there's a common denominator of people who've been here longer than 2 years, I think.
Yeah. So yeah, you have a degree in economics. I have a degree in biology.
Nice.
Right. So my parents wanted me. It's like a traditional.
Nice.
Be a doctor.
Yeah.
To make a lot of money. And when I was growing up, I agreed with that. I was like, okay, yeah, it makes sense,
Sure.
right? You know, my parents wanted me to be a dentist. You know, I wanted to be a dentist.
Really?
So I was like, yeah, this is something I felt like I was good with people, right? And I'm very hands-on, right? So I'm like, yeah, okay. You know, I did the whole DATs, right, the aptitude test, and I think the best marks that I got was on using I think it wasn't soap, it was chalk. No, it was soap. It was soap. You have to carve these shapes, right? Or
with
carve
your
a
hands.
teeth. Yeah. It was part of like this aptitude, you know, manual dexterity thing, right? And that was the thing I got the highest marks on. Memorizing all the little details, I'm just not good at that. So I think eventually I found that, I think studying, like maybe to a certain extent, if I passed everything and I graduated from dental school, I would have been a great dentist.
Oh, I'm sure.
Right? But it's that process I was not a big fan of.
Sure.
It's like, you know, you have to be, it will be another 4 or 5 years in school.
Yeah.
So I sort of, and I, not to mention, there are definitely people that wanted it more than me.
Yeah.
Right? You know, I'm not going to deprive them of that opportunity.
Sure.
Right. But I think this whole creative sort of area or expertise, it started young, right? I always enjoyed, I have cousins that would always send me sketches of different things, right?
Yeah.
And I would be like, wow, that's really cool. So I started taking classes, right? So sort of fundamentally trained in like sketching and, you know, these type of drawings.
Yeah.
Right? You know, I always, you know, when I was in high school, my highest marks were always in, you know, arts and crafts, like media, things like that.
Right.
And I, you know, with the sort of how easy it is to sort of understand and learn about design, right?
Sure.
My sort of philosophy on design is I think everybody can be a designer because I think everybody has a certain aesthetic with the clothes that you wear, with the things that you like, you know, and the design is everywhere, right? So it's very easy to sort of absorb everything, right? Not to mention it's very functional, right? So graphic design, when I first started, it was like in school or with school clubs, you know, you make a poster, you put some work on some pictures, right? And that was how I first got into graphic design,
right, yeah.
And that was sort of like, I think the first stepping stone into what I'm doing now, because that first job I got in China, in Shanghai, was as a sort of, it was like a marketing, they phrased it as a marketing executive, but basically I was working for like this investment management company. I was helping them with graphic design.
A
right?
lot of
Helping them
PowerPoints probably, right?
a little bit, but also like website but with things like that, it's you kind of learn most of the stuff you learn on the job anyway, right? So if I have the fundamentals, I kind of get what they're going for, and they were an investment, management firm. They weren't looking for anything super
very
creative.
risk averse, very corporate.
Yeah, they were looking for something
things.
that's professional, that's something clean. So I was like, yes, I can definitely do that, and I think they definitely gave me a chance, and I'm very grateful that I ended up here, right? But once you get here, then you start to take everything in, right? And slowly you start to realize, well, hold on, I've been just putting text on photos, right? What do I want to do? Like, how do I want to influence? And I think eventually, at that point, all of my coworkers were British. They were drinking every day. They were going out every day, and I was going out with them. Yongkang Road, right? That was
back when it was open.
Back when it was open. And I just found that it was great talking to a lot of these bar owners and bartenders. And eventually, I was like, hey, you guys are always doing these things. Can I help you out? Can I freelance for you? Can I help you make some posters and things like that? And of course, everybody's really welcoming, right? Whereas I think this is a difference. One of the first differences that I've noticed with a lot of my graphic design friends back home, they were very, how would I say it? It was always like trying to trade value. It was like, this is how much it is. This is like, the first conversation really is on like price and, this is how much I charge per hour. This is what you want. This is the brief, right? It was all very formal. But here, it's really sometimes I was like, buy me a beer. I'll help you make a poster or something. If it's easy to do and I got some time after work, I'll help you out. Right? So I think that sort of environment, they were very appreciative of that. It wasn't, they weren't taking that for granted. They were like, wow, really, this looks really good and I really appreciate you for doing this, right? But of course, some of them were paid as well, and I was working a little bit on the side. But eventually, as I realized there was a threshold, right? But again, always sort of fortune sort of always just came. It was when enough people knew about you, and eventually I think this is when I was a headhunter approached me for a job.
And how old were you when that happened?
So I was 24.
That's very early, Patrick.
Yeah. But I mean, that's just the way it is. They were looking for somebody that could speak Chinese, that could speak English, right? That understood sort of Western design principles, that was able to do basic/intermediary graphic design. Right. And, well immersed within the FB industry. And I was, right? Going out, of course, drinking almost every day. So that it was a big company, big beer company. All right, they found me and I was doing some graphic design for them. Of course, at that point, I realized, once I immersed myself, I was like, you know what, graphic design is a nice job, but I don't think that's what I want to do, or I don't think there's a lot of growth in terms of, I think just in terms of the titles, right? There's graphic designer, and then it's like what, creative director, or like senior graphic designer. But it's like, I think that's all very agency type of roles, right? And I knew within that company, which wasn't an agency, it wasn't it wasn't a creative firm, that there would be very limited sort of growth. Right? They didn't have an internal team. It was just like, sort of supplementary services to help the brand or help the sales team out. Right. So I think I was kind of like, I wouldn't say smart, but I was like, oh, maybe I should see if there's any other roles that I could do. Right. And I was like, marketing seems to be a very broad spectrum of things you can do. Especially here. So I was like, you know what, I'll do all the graphic design, but, would it be possible for me to get the title of marketing manager? And I will do some of the marketing stuff as well. Right. And of course, it was a slow progression. I think people really gave me a chance, and I'm very fortunate for that. Right. But slowly, I started from graphic design, went into more like, well, can you help this event out? Can you organize this? Can you help this brand thing out? And, design, brand, all of this, all very interconnected. Right? Can you help localize? Can you make packaging? Right? And eventually I was like, if I'm doing the packaging, I have to understand the, local audience and what they're looking for.
It's my phone. Sorry.
Yeah. No worries. And then I started to look into like, well, we should be strategic with everything. Right. And then once you get keywords like strategy and, then you're like, oh, okay, now I'm a proper marketing person, right? I'm a marketing manager. And I was very fortunate for that, just to learn everything about marketing.
Right. Can I quickly jump in here? I mean, it sounds like you've learned a lot in marketing over the years, definitely, but just, I mean, you just said so much that I would love to kind of unpack if you just give me the chance. Going from biology and dentistry to marketing. Like, I think this is really cool. And this is one of the reasons why I really enjoy doing these podcasts, because you're still fairly young.
Yeah.
And like sitting across from you for the first time, even just across 5 minutes, I get the sense that you can logically piece these things together.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think it's very easy for the average person to go from dentistry to figuring out how I want to be a videographer. And we haven't even gotten there yet.
We haven't gotten there yet.
You know, but like just kind of seeing you go through it step by step, I almost want to say you've kind of played this out perfectly. Like, seeing
It was lucky. This wasn't
the
part
fact
of the plan.
that you can say that says a lot about you, right? Because I 100% agree. Just like how a lot of things I'm doing right now is 100% luck.
Yeah.
But I didn't fucking understand that at 25. When you're 25, you're just like, oh yeah, like I am Superman, right? This is all because of me, you know. So I never got that. The fact that you understand that, I think, says a lot about you.
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the key principles I still follow through.
Yeah.
Right. And you know, I think some of my clients are not going to be happy for me saying this.
Okay.
No, but I believe in the concept of fake it till you make it. I really do believe it. Right. And it's not to say,
as long as you put in the work, right?
No, for sure. It's like, I think if you really fake it, I'm
Yeah.
not talking about like a very superficial,
Right.
like on the surface. Like, but if you really try to fake it, like
Yeah.
even if it's like you don't know anything and
Yeah.
you know you want to give off an appearance that you know about something,
Right.
Like for me, I was like googling how to do stuff.
Yeah,
And then
that's what I mean,
I'll
right?
have
Like,
a
you gotta
conversation,
put
be
in
like,
the
yeah, I
work.
know about this, you know. But then to be honest, like once you Googled it, you've learned the knowledge.
Yeah.
Then to be fair, like you're probably not faking anymore. Once you
Right.
accumulate enough, you're not really faking it.
Dude, that's exactly
Right,
what we
and-
did with this podcast.
Yeah. No, but that's like I believe in that. So I think even then it was always like trying never saying like, oh, I can't do something to anybody, right? And I'll figure it out if I could actually do it, right? You know, and of course most of the stuff again with graphic design, you know, with the prevalence of online learning and YouTube,
Yes.
just searching up on Google, like, how do you make the shape this way?
Yeah.
You know, loads of tutorials will pop up.
But
right?
these tutorials are exactly, you know, they exist everywhere, but going from that thought to that action is not something a lot of people do, right? Because it takes work, right? I've gone through this process. We're going through this process right now with this podcast.
Yeah.
The first time that you try to learn something, chances are you're going to suck at it. I'm sure it's the same in graphic design. I'm sure you had this experience in videography as well, right? And then a lot of people at that point quit already. And then they quit at the point before that, right? They'll search it on YouTube, they see the videos, and they're just like, I don't have 20 minutes for this.
Yeah.
Right? So what was it with you that made you just go through these hoops over and over and over again?
Yeah.
Was it just like a pursuit knowing that you wanted more, or what is it?
I think what helped is like being in an environment or a situation where you have to learn it. You know, I was in a job where there were expectations of me that I could do certain things.
Right.
And of course, I could probably do 80% of things they were asking for, but the 20% that they asked that I couldn't do, I had to learn.
Yeah.
Right. So I had to search it up.
Yeah.
Right. So I had to sit there watching
Not
YouTube
everyone's
video.
like that, bro.
Oh, but the job, the job, if you couldn't do it, then I think, you're letting people down. You know.
Dude, I completely agree with you. I think the fact that you think that way is incredible, and you have such a bright future ahead of you just by what you told me. But absolutely, not a lot of people do that. A lot of people, I would say, just say this is 80% I can do.
Yeah.
Deal with it or don't.
Oh,
you know, it's just, they don't have a growth mindset. It's really
but
shitty.
I think if you put in the perspective of, I think sometimes it is the 20% or the 10% or the 5% that really, I think you're right. The 20% probably isn't the best way to frame it. I think oftentimes it's like the 2%.
Yeah, the closer you get to 100, the less people are willing to put up the work for it.
Yeah.
Right?
But I think that 2% really makes it different. Like one small thing, right? You know, even as I'm doing, I'm of course constant. I'm sure you are constantly learning as well.
Sure.
Right. You know, if I'm working on a video and it's like nowadays the stuff that I learn from YouTube videos is considerably less. Now it's more of just like watching it.
Yeah.
And to be honest,
See how
sometimes
people do
you know
it,
you do feel like it's taking up a lot of time.
Yeah.
But when I first started, every video I watched, I'll be like, whoa, okay, hold on, like. Every
I know
video will
that
be useful.
feeling.
Now it's like, okay, it's a little bit less, so you have to be very selective,
Yeah.
and you have to really like, sometimes it's just for entertainment, just to watch something. But my point was like, even now, like small little details about like learning about a hockey or something, you know, that actually makes a big difference in terms of the way I think, especially if you want to fake it as a professional.
Right.
Again, again, it's all about the small details, but they all add up, right?
Yeah,
and that's sort of this. Even now, it's still the process. And I'm always looking for the small details. Yeah.
It's so funny that you mentioned that. The small, it's easy to go 50% in anything, in my opinion. Like if you want to pick up running,
Yeah.
right? It's easy to just start running, right? But taking running seriously requires these like small details, right? You got to invest in the shoes and technique and breathing techniques and everything. It's the same thing with design as well. I guess for me, what I'm really curious about as you've gone through this is, at what point did you decide? What, like, was there a specific moment? Was it like, at what point were you just like, you know what, fuck this business shit?
Yeah.
You know, I want to tell stories. I think that's your core thing, right?
And also, I think it came with the opportunities, right?
Okay.
You know, doing marketing for big,
very logical.
F&B company. We're traveling quite a bit, visiting. You know, and I really enjoy traveling, right? So going all over China and some parts of Asia as well, Japan, Korea, these type of places. You know, I start to realize, like, wow, like, you know, I'm always trying to reflect and think about the same situation. What would I think, you know, 2 years prior? I would think like, wow, this is a great, amazing opportunity to be able to travel all over.
You really think like that?
Yeah, I think
Dude,
so.
that's fucking awesome.
No, I mean, I even now, sometimes, and it's not even thinking about it, even it's thinking, sometimes I just find myself thinking like, wow, it's unbelievable. Like, this is so cool. Like, am I really doing this? It's like, you have these thoughts. It's like, am I actually doing this?
Yeah.
Like, I would never, you know, you never have these thoughts before. Right, which is why I think like this whole planning thing, there never was a plan. It's like, within this time, I'm gonna go do this. Right, I find it fortunate to be thinking about it right now, thinking about like, wow, this is really cool. Right, and if it's really cool, what else can I do with it? Right, so as I was traveling, you know, we're taking photos. Right, everybody take photos, like Instagram, trying to like show off. Now it's like, oh, I'm a travel. You know, I think there's always a dream to be like, oh, I'm a travel like vlogger type of person. Right. Not, you know, I never pursued that really seriously, you know, I was traveling for work, really, right? But I was like, well, why don't I take photos, shoot some video, right? You know, it was, you know, we were paying sort of event videographers and photographers a lot of money.
Yeah, and then you're like, fuck this, I could do this.
No, it was, basically. I was like, oh, I could probably do this, right? And I, you know, to a certain extent, I probably understand the brand better. You know, as the marketing manager, I knew what I needed to show off, whether it was product or in the engagements, that aesthetic, right? What the brand was looking for, what the brands from the States or not from China, that what they were looking for. Whereas somebody local, you would have to tell them. If you were to tell them, it's like, I might as well do it myself. Right. So that was kind of like the whole, oh, I could probably do it better myself. Yeah. Right. That was that sort of mentality. Yeah. Right.
Dude, that sort of mentality I can relate to. For me, it's not so much that, I guess in a way it is, I can do it better myself. But I think for me, I approach this very differently than you. We talked about this briefly, you know, earlier before we started recording. I cannot work with clients. Like, just seeing you on the call with me, dude, I would have hung up. You know, like, so I've always, in a lot of ways, have the same passions as you. But they have always been over my own products. So I think like at its core, I'm a product person. Because like I don't want to execute your vision. No matter how much you pay me, right? No matter how well I can do it, I don't want to execute a Nike ad. I would rather I execute an ad for myself. You know, so I think for me, that has always been the difference why I couldn't take client work.
But I think we might be jumping across what we're doing now. Just jumping a little bit.
Dude, we can jump wherever you want.
But that's also why right now I think it's important for everyone within the creative industry to sort of have your own, let's just say, intellectual property, right? Brand IP, right? Like, just like, for example, Shades of Yellow.
Sure.
I don't know if it's trademarked, or I don't know if it's like you got any copyright.
Not. You know what? For the purpose of this recording, it is trademarked. Do not look this up right now. It is trademarked everywhere in the world.
But like, I think having something that you own, and that's what you're looking to do, right? You have your own vision that you want. But the thing is, like, people need to believe in your vision as well, right? So for me, I might be starting more from like showing that the capabilities I can do right now. Of course, making a living, right? But now the problem becomes, what am I doing, you know, to create something unique, right? You know, there's a lot of, especially for guys like me, the one shop stop, where I learned everything from YouTube, basically everything from YouTube. Basically copying, right? Copying the you know, the actual process.
I prefer mirroring. For me,
okay,
right? Because like, you look, every artistry that you start, and I will consider this an artistry that you do. Everybody who goes into it looks at someone else first. Right? Comedians start being a comedian because they love another comedian. Right? Painters love other painters before they go into it, and then there's a growing process, and you learn how other people do it, and more or less you copy. And then you hit a point where you kind of have enough experience, and it sounds like you're getting there, right? You know, where then now you can go, where's my voice in this, right?
Exactly.
Where's my brushstroke? I mean, it sounds like that's where you're at right now.
Yeah, well, I also I do believe that nothing, especially in China, is original. You know, whatever you think of, somebody's probably doing
Look
it.
at fashion, right? Like it's
yeah, but that's okay. That's okay. The market's big enough. There's enough people to pay attention to whatever it is you're doing within your community or whatever it is. So like, I think just don't be afraid and keep doing it, right? So I think that's always pushed me forward.
Dude, that's a great mindset. I gotta say.
But now the challenge is finding my own identity within the creative industry, but also as an individual, as you know, as an entrepreneur in China, trying to make a mark, right? And then so far, I think, which is why leaning to what I'm doing now, which is the whole storytelling. You know, to be honest, I also oftentimes find myself sitting in your position, right? Whether it's interviews or just trying to sort of get some insight as organically as possible. Oftentimes that's the methodology I use for interviews as well.
Over beers or coffee.
You know, with a lot of the storytelling work that I do, we would have a script just for the sake. It's a risk management thing, it's a professional thing. We'll have a script and talking points, but oftentimes we're starting from scratch, right? And if absolutely, you know, not everybody's an actor, not everybody's a public speaker, right? If absolutely, you know, they find it difficult to you know, get their point across, then we'll go to the script, right? And that's typically how I approach sort of storytelling.
Yeah.
But the most interesting and the most unexpected, you know, sound bites often come from these organic conversations.
They're from the raw. Yeah, absolutely agree. You know, same thing with this podcast. Usually we have found that once we get past the initial hurdle, because look, for a lot of people who come on here, this is the first time doing this. You know, so we have found that 10, 20, 30 minutes in, when they've had a couple drinks, you know, we've had a couple topic points, that's when the meat of it really happens. You know, so I think that's probably similar to how you do it as well, right? Going back to the storytelling, like you've worked with some really large brands here, right? I don't want to drop any of the names. You can do that. Is that something you enjoy more, or do you want to kind of look more into your own way of doing this? Yeah,
you know, being in the industry, maybe I wouldn't say what I'm doing is completely unique,
right?
But you know, with the big companies, right? Typically, again, there's usually some sort of agency and account manager, and there's a whole like big team. And I understand, right? For big projects, big budgets, it's a matter of trust. It's a matter of risk, right? So this is not, and again, most of the people that I work with on the brand team, they don't own the company,
right?
They're not invested in the growth of the company. They just need to do their job right. So it's much easier to say to their boss, "Look, I got this great agency."
Yeah, this thing bothers me though. You can keep going, but like this is what drives me nuts about this industry.
But I think with big companies, if you really find brand people that are really invested and they're very passionate about the brand, it becomes easier, right? Then oftentimes all you need to do is build a great connection with them, understand what their needs and goals and what their expectations are, and that whole process it becomes so much more. It becomes, I think, to a certain point, you're cutting out. You can cut out the middleman, right? Because you're now just very personal in terms of, and that's how I like most of the work that I really enjoy are things like that, where you know I'm acting like an agency, so I do have to take on that extended risk, right? Not just as a sort of like an executor in terms of the production, but also the client management, right? And the business development, right? And I enjoy that, right? So it's not like a negative thing.
I mean,
but I think it shortens the distance between somebody that's doing the work and somebody that has, say, the brand vision or the campaign and whatever it is they want to do.
Shortening that distance between the person who does the work, the campaign, and you, I think is incredibly important. And I think it's really cool that you recognize that. You know, because with everything that I do, I'm so close to the fucking brand, right? So what I was saying earlier is, it would drive me nuts if I build a company like hypothetically Nike, and there are people who worked on my brand team who didn't care about the brand. Like that would drive me nuts. You know, and that's why with TNS and what we're doing now, especially, like I tell my team, if you're not proud of what we do, talk to me. Right? Like, let me know. And then let's figure out a middle ground. Like, you should not be working for this if this isn't something you passionately believe in. But I understand once your company gets to a size, it's harder to manage that. But I think some companies have managed to do that. I think Airbnb has done a great job. I think Nike probably does a good job internally. I don't know how their agencies are. You know, but Nike just has so much work in China.
It's just the scale, right? It's so insane. Big that even if you care about this thing, your opinion is one of many. Right. Sure. So this
especially in China. Right. Like,
So this is why I oftentimes like working with startups as well, right? Because the spokesperson is the founder oftentimes, right? They, of course, they care about the brand because it's their business, right? You know, so those are like, that's a great relationship. And now, of course, they have smaller budgets, and sometimes they're a little bit less mature when it comes to branding and the vision. But that's also a process that I like to talk to them about.
You
right?
like to help them build that. And
I think a video, like a brand video, is a great way to start thinking about that, right? Because when you're thinking about the script, what is the most important that you have to talk about?
Right.
And, you know, I find great pleasure in, you know, helping them be like, oh, you know what, this is a great way to sort of organize what I want to do, right? You know, I can talk for 30 minutes, an hour about my brand, but, you know, your challenge to me is to shorten it down to 30 seconds or 1 minute.
Exactly.
Right. And that 1 minute is the core of why you're, you know, what's the value of your brand, right? So sometimes it's helping them, right? And you know, for me, hopefully, you know, that turns into something that is, you know, worth something. Not just the video, of course, right? They appreciate it, but I enjoy that process. Right. And now when it comes to building my own brand, right, or your own intellectual property, these are all great little bits of information that I'm sort of accumulating as well.
I mean, it sounds like you're accumulating a lot and you're learning a lot on the way. A part of it is your mindset, but obviously a part of it is your aptitude. I mean, like, you know, just sitting across from you sound like an incredibly intelligent guy. What part of this process is the most attractive to you? Like, is it the... Because on the one hand, what I'm hearing, correct me if I'm wrong, obviously, right? On the one hand, what I'm hearing is you enjoy helping founders or early stage people express their brands the way that they probably wouldn't be able to execute it, right? Because they probably have the idea of how they want their brand to be communicated, but they cannot execute it, right? And I guess that's where you come in, right? And on the other hand, I hear that you're trying to build your own brand and, you know, that process, but that's probably still in the same service, isn't it? Or like...
I would say the stuff that I'm trying to do on my own would be different. And that's more experimental. It's like trying to move away from, you know, maybe still stay within media and content, but moving away from like starting out like a video production business, right? Trying to scale and expand.
What would it be for you? Like, if you could design your dream, fill in the blank, I don't know, job, company, brand, what would it be for you?
I like this, right?
Okay,
like,
cool.
And I talked to you about a little bit. You know, I like having conversations with people. That's one of the things I like about the other process as well, like working with clients, just having that conversation, like whether it's over a beer or coffee or something, kind of getting to know them. Right. And I've had opportunities come up because of that process. Where, you know, I got very close. First of all, I think that's also a very important thing to do. Like, the moment you're able to go past that barrier with someone, where they're talking about like, you know, this is why I'm doing this, or like what really motivates me. Right, because on the surface, everybody's trying to put up a front, right? It's people get not defensive, but they put up a wall, right? You know, they don't want to give away
especially
everything. But if you can go past that, and not in a negative way, but really just to see like, you know, this will actually really help me with this project that we're working on. I think that I do find that it's like they trust me, right? There's not everybody is willing to share that. Right? So being trusted is something I value quite a bit. But going on to what I want to do myself, I think something along the lines where I think, speaking from personal experience, right? I know there's probably a lot of, not even say young, like just people like me, right? I would say like similar age, right? Especially some of my friends back home. You know, I want to show them, especially here, that, you know, there's a lot of opportunities, not just in China, but I think you have to, you know, take a step out of your comfort zone. Right, China's a great example, and perhaps something that I want to do would be related to China. Right, having conversations about starting a business. Right, there's a lot of things I've gone through that I think if the information was out there, it would be a lot easier for past me, right, to be able to get
and
access
past
to.
Me as well.
Yeah. So it's like, I mean, like, I'm all for trying to, you know, help people with that. Right. Because I'm not afraid of competition. If anything, these people, if they're getting in the industry, these people are people I can rely on. Right. But it's about building community. I think it's also about building, also just trying new stuff as well. Right. Because one of the things I'm trying to do now, like, for example, even with this drink that my friend's doing, like, he's not, I mean, he's in the factory and he's, you know, they're doing all the design very hand.